In my research, I try to focus on artists who are often forgotten, left out of the canon. And in the two exhibitions that I worked on recently, on the one hand, I was looking at artists outside France, because I'm a specialist in French art, and in particularly French Impressionism. So I was looking at artists who were in America and who were able to kind of learn about French Impressionism, first of all by travelling to Paris, where they were able to see the works firsthand, but also in America itself. And that's largely through the actions of dealers and maybe critics. So I'm particularly excited by the networks of influence that are in play here. So the way in which maybe a critic could write something in France, it would then be translated into English and then read by somebody in a completely different country. And that works, of course, not only in America, but it works right across Europe, right across the world. So that's one aspect of my research, which I describe as peripheral impressionism, let's say. So it's looking at artists on the periphery and trying to kind of reinstate them in the canon. I'm also interested in artists in France itself who have been, downgraded to minor artists, but who actually deserve a better place, a more prominent place in the hierarchy. So another exhibition I worked on focused on the work of Charles d'Aubigny, who has always been sort of rather overlooked as a landscape artist, but who was a major player in the history of Impressionism. And I think that the exhibition helped people to understand really how prominent his role was. One of the ways in which I did that was by hanging his work alongside the work of the Impressionists. And you were able to see how incredibly close they were and how there was almost a dialogue taking place between these different artists. Some of the exhibitions I've worked on have had a really important economic impact. They've also had an impact on kind of just the way people think, the way people debate about art. From the point of view of the economic impact, a good example is the exhibition I did on Charles d'Aubigny. And a lot around the time of the exhibition, the market for his work actually rose considerably in price. And I've seen this happen time and time again. When you bring an artist out into the open, an artist who was previously kind of completely unknown, then the price for his works will rise dramatically. So that was interesting. I mean, I think also the exhibitions that I work on bring huge economic impact or benefit to the institutions that I'm curating them for. And I mean, not only in terms of kind of visitors coming in, but also publications which result from these exhibitions. And they also stimulate a lot of critical debate. So that was the case with the d'Aubigny show, when there were questions raised around what is Impressionism? Who is this artist? Why have we never heard of him before? And especially also around the American Impressionism exhibition, which I curated in 2014, where we hung French Impressionist works alongside American Impressionist works, and this really invited people to kind of think about the differences between these artists and whether the hierarchies which have been kind of created throughout history should be challenged in some way. Whether they were, whether we were successful in that is another question. It certainly sparked a lot of press debate, and what it did was, in my view, it uncovered all these kind of prejudices that people have about what's good and what's bad, and hopefully made a huge difference, because I know that judging by the audience reception, visitor comments, the public responded incredibly well to these artists. They really loved the paintings that they saw, and yet the critics were slightly sort of snooty about what they saw, because they knew that these artists were not on the same level as the French artists historically. I think extraordinary research is something which makes people think again, think afresh. And I suppose one of the things that happened with both the exhibitions I worked on in 2014, 2016 was the timing was quite extraordinary. They both coincided with these debates around, first of all, and votes around Scottish independence, first of all, and then the Brexit debate. Particularly in the case of the American Impressionism show, we were really talking about national identity and about the status of different artists and whether French art should be seen, on a higher level than American art. So in some ways there were parallels to be made, I think, between the two debates. And certainly the press really picked up on that. And actually we even had a public debate around, it was around American Impressionism and French Impressionism, which was very eagerly attended. And I think probably just because of what was happening politically at the same time.